Hello viewers, well here is part 2 of my all gold looking at the national, international B and international A licenses on Gran Turismo 7. Again, they step up the challenge. Each step from B to A is a big step up in terms of challenge and difficulty. Completing them as bronze isn't too bad, but completing them as gold steps up to be a whole new level. So let's take a look and see what we've got in store. Okay viewers, so kicking off then, Willow Springs, and again we're moving into faster cars and just taking this curb, or it's called long corner. You'll find the rear end is stepping out, very tricky. There's a couple of bumps mid-corner, there's one to the end of the corner, and again the rear does like to step out. It's just about going wide initially, cutting your line in, maximising your speed on the exit. Very tricky. It's one of those first challenges where I wondered, can the real car possibly handle this badly? You know, it must be down to the tyres, but I've got to say it does seem extremely difficult to actually control the car. A lot of loss in rear end grip there. Into the Daytona circuit, and the first issue is when you turn into the first part of chicane, you just continue turning as if one corner, and then you work your way through. So initially I went in there and I was straightening the wheel and then going off because I wasn't able to turn in again. So it's getting that entry turn to the right, so it's just one continuous turn before you turn back onto the banking there with the left. So another step forward there as well. Again, both of those required a few restarts. Now onto the next challenge then, and let's see how we get on here. I can't remember this one at all so much now because I've been through so many of them. So braking in nice and early in Fuji, and then just getting on the power through this corner. And again, this is one of those long corners that if you've played a lot of Gran Turismo Sport, general handling here is quite similar, but it's all about, see that half throttle through the corner before opening the throttle on the exit. Down on the brakes, sweeping the car in, gently on the power. And I'm using a very smooth throttle control here, probably not as aggressive as some players. That's the way I tend to drive, is more smooth, and it works with some cars more than others in getting good traction. So over the line, pretty straightforward challenge there. That one won't have taken many attempts. It's just a general driving challenge, driving competence, and if you've played a lot of GT Sport, you'll be a-okay for that one. Now on to what was I thought a very tricky challenge. This is a track I play quite a bit. I enjoy this Tokyo Expressway circuit. I thought this would be quite straightforward, but in actual fact there really was a high level of precision required on this challenge just to get it just right through the upcoming chicane. I didn't know actually whether to take the line wide or narrow on the entry to that corner. It's very different depending on different cars. You want to balance yourself right here to be a sort of wide and then really hit the first apex. You can carry a lot of speed. But either way, I had a few attempts where I was just missing out a few times, and then finally it came together. I was actually quite relieved at the time to get that one out of the way. That one requires a fair bit of practice. It is just gentle precision on the throttle. The car's suspension tends to wallow around a bit, so you've got to prepare the car for that. Onto the first rally challenge, and again I changed my rim for this one. I was using the Gran Turismo rim, but I thought no, I need to get into full rally vibe. Gearing is quite important over the jumps. The car is more unstable in fourth than fifth, and you're coming up to a high speed corner. You're braking early, throwing the car in. It doesn't really matter if you go in on the grass as long as you come out on the gravel. So really get aggressive on the entry to that corner, and then obviously there's a lot more traction on the gravel, but that's fine. So you slide across the grass, then get the traction on the exit. Here I ended up being aggressive, getting wheel spin. Ordinarily you wouldn't want to get too much wheel spin, but the wheel spin really worked on the gravel, and that worked well for me. So again, that took a few attempts just to get my head around it in terms of where to slide the car in, because this car, very strange handling in Gran Turismo and Rally, and the car can slide wide on the exit. So getting the balance there was, and the aggression in the last part was key. So aggressive driving on the Rally seems to be the way forward. Onto a very tricky wet challenge now. I nearly did this on my first attempt, and then after that it took several attempts to get back there again without the car spinning out in this first corner. If you get through that, as soon as you straighten the car, you can accelerate, but you've really got to just, as you can see, very minimal throttle, if any at all. Minimal throttle until you straighten the car, then you get on the power. Zero grip on this challenge, so it's all about getting the car on the right line that enables you to open the exit as quickly as possible, get on the power, and then nail that throttle over time. Or the car just stepping out a little bit, but we're okay, and we're getting over the line. So that's another relief, getting that one done. A good introduction to, you know, the difficult traction when you're on the wrong tyres in certain conditions, and good practice for general throttle control that you need. You can feel the car going. There's a nature of you that wants to go faster, so you put your foot down to go faster, but you just cannot go faster than your feeling of grip and the way you handle it allows you to. Onto a bit of Nurburgring here, last couple of corners, something we've all done a lot of time, and it's basically a bit of driving technique again, just sweeping through, maximising the racing line, and that final corner as well, getting through there, that's fine. We've all done that a lot of times, so I think that challenge was pretty straightforward again. They're all, they take time. You're not going to do it first time, just a bit about being smooth, getting those braking points just right, and maximising your line through those corners. But for experienced GT Sport players, they'll fly through that one pretty quickly. Again, it's just general racing and maximising your line. Dry conditions feels so much easier than some say the wet conditions now. And it also depends on the car handling as well. And again, another straightforward one at Dragon Trail. And again, oh no, yes, yeah, this one was a 3-point corner, so balanced throttle through the first 3 corners. You'll see I'm not full throttle, opening up the final section, and I was just quite smooth with it. I've seen some people more aggressive, that works as well, but I tend to do the smooth style, works for me. And again, I've only done these times just to get the gold, and I'm not gone back. I could go back to them and get better and better and better, but I was just moving on from challenge to challenge to get this video made for you guys, turn it around. Then on to corners, well, elevation change corners now. So let's see, as I can't remember this one, it's a downhill, isn't it? So you're braking late uphill, much later than you normally would. And then really it's about getting your line right on the downhill sections, giving yourself the widest possible line to turn in, hitting that inside curb. Doesn't matter if the car loses a bit on the exit, you'll get that, and that's a pretty straightforward test there as well. Just all about that downhill line, a little bit of lifting, keep an eye on the throttle control on the base, because the car can spin out quite easily. So just again, car balance is what we've seen on a few of these challenges. What are we on to now? Racing line and trial mountain, and these trial mountain challenges were in the main quite precise. So it's all about, for me, these slow corners and making sure that you're good on the entry. So you've got a good exit line. You just get a little bit more power down as quickly as possible, get a bit more speed. This corner in particular, you take a little bit slower than you'd expect. If you understeer on the way in, you're always understeering. You can never get the car back. And this one's an important one as well, getting in early. So it gives you the good drive on the exit, so you have more speed down the straight. And the straight, that final corner, in fact, is very important to get right. So you want to get the flow of the course. I was happy about that one. That one took a few attempts. I just kept missing it by like hundredths of a second over and over again. So that one was quite tricky just to, and then suddenly you put in a stage like that and you go, way quicker. So that's the International B license acquired there. You can just see the points and the various cars. And here we come. It's quite handy to get these cars because you will use them early on, and they're very expensive as well. So anything that saves money in Gran Turismo is helpful at this stage. And again, another car there for, I think it's for all gold. There we are in every challenge. So another result. Again, another good reason. At least, I mean, if you at least do it in the first 2 or 3 tests, getting those 3 extra cars for the gold is certainly worth it. They're all, for a wide range of players, are doable. Now, International A. This is where the tests start to become really difficult. This is where you really start to have the challenge. There was a couple of, I wouldn't say really difficult ones, but ones that required a few restarts just to get it just right on International B. But International A, all about precision now. Again, first test was pretty straightforward. I was like, yeah, that's okay, we're moving on. You always take the wins when you have a test that you do first time. That's always very handy. I always like to get that done. So here we are then back in Tokyo. Again, this was a car that had no brakes. I remember braking the first time, flying straight into the wall. It had no brakes at all. And then eventually I was realising, wow, you're braking way, way, way earlier than I was expecting. So this is a sports car with no brakes. But having done this section a lot at the Olympic Challenge last year, I knew it relatively well and completed it. Well, I guess it was like first time of actually going around the stage. Smacked into the wall, I think, twice, finding the braking point. Third time I braked really early and just completed it. So that was pretty handy and enjoying a bit of music well. Always feels satisfying to get a quick test out of the way very quickly. Now back on to the rally. Again, we had a couple of restarts here because this is where I learned about the gearing. So if you're in fourth, sometimes the car can spin out. Fifth, it doesn't. There I got away with it. I went for it to keep the revs. And again, just looking at some of these as linking as one single corner rather than two corners works well. Thinking about what we did earlier, throwing the car in early at times. Again, I was still a bit wide, but it gave me a slightly narrower exit to give me a nice turn into this section. One complete section felt nice, and then flat really just throwing it into this final corner. Very satisfying, especially with the new graphics and detail. There's a great fidelity and feeling of movement there, and it all works well. So unusual but fun handling, especially with my WRC wheel. Always whack that on to do the rally challenges, just adds to it, and enjoying the old music at the end there. Satisfaction. On to the next one then. What are we doing now? Let's have a look here. Largo, right, let's see. Now this is a track that I've always struggled on the turn one braking point. I've never really got it. I've never found a complete marker. Didn't do very well there at all. I was braking too early, then had to come off the brakes a bit. And I thought, well, I'm probably going to have to do this again. I think I did this on my first attempt, and it wasn't very difficult at all compared to the other tests. But I practiced, well, I say I practiced this, I'd run a challenge with this, just making the VVV video and having a look at Largo. I went completely wide through there. The car was just understeered all the way, and I was like, there's nothing I can do about that, it's not turning in, and managed to get it done. But you can go plenty quicker than that. So I thought, well, you know what, again, another quick win, I'll take that and we'll move on to the next one. Again, this is situations where you can do probably a 32, even a 31 if you're a world expert. Here we are now at Le Mans, and this was really intense. This was the fastest car. The violence of this car was really something to behold, and it was very intense to drive. The sound, the bumping around, the whole feeling of being in there, really something. It was very intense, and again, you need to just look through the corner. You're looking almost at the exit when you're driving this section. Flat through here now, just committed. That's fine. So again, if you've done Le Mans, you'll know it pretty well. The car handles well. Main thing is getting it into the corner. If you understeer in, you can't save it. So you've got to slow down a bit to make sure you're gently on the power and balanced on the way out of the corner. So again, see beyond the speed of the car and just simply, what do I concentrate on? What do I need to do? Bit of a braking now at Laguna Seca. And again, finding the braking point at the top of the hill is the first challenge. Finding the right gear. I could probably shift up a bit earlier there, but I like to just get a bit of drive and then up into second. Again, getting this corner just right is important, and then getting on the power on the exit. The rear wanted to stand out constantly on this car. Again, I think just a couple of attempts. The most difficult thing for me was getting the braking at the top of the hill. Once I had that sorted, the rest of it gradually came together. You can carry more speed than you expect, and just keeping the control of that rear. Now on to another wet weather challenge, Tsukuba. Again, getting the car in early to this first section, very important. And then that way you can get on the power earlier, more balanced. And you just want to control it through this corner, as you can see, feathering the throttle. Ignore traction control, it's not going to save you. There's a minor support to traction control, but in the main it's not going to save you. It's not going to help your driving as such. It's just there to, for me, it just gives me that little bit more warning that the car is imminently going to slide, rather than stopping the slide itself, which is always helpful. And a lot of these cars use traction control, so do remember that in the game, that if a car uses traction control, use traction control, and don't be afraid of using traction control. They don't care whether you use it or not. You're just there to get the gold medals and pass and be as quick as you can. Use whatever tools are at your disposal to win. That's what real racing drivers do. If you saw the assists on the front Formula 1 cars or the front Le Mans cars compared to the rear, you know what I'm talking about. Right, here we go, downhill, very tricky. I went down to second gear, the demo does third, and again balance on the throttle through this corner, looking through the exit. So it's really getting important. The important part is the exit of that corner. The car was a bit unbalanced, but I had good speed and I held it together. So that challenge there took I think a good 10 restarts on that challenge. It was a very tricky challenge to get right, get the balance right going downhill, the second part of the course right. There was several parts to getting that all together. So very tricky challenge. Now on to Deep Forest. This was pretty straightforward, this one. I know the track well. I'd already done some laps just to practice beforehand, just exploring the course, so I knew where I wanted to be. The car handled very well through the corners, lots of grip, and it felt quite smooth and committed to drive. This was the only corner that took a bit of, well, I say it took a bit of time. It's only, it should have went a bit wide on the exit, but it was able to get on the power, so there's so much grip, and it even worked well on this downhill section. Very nice, very satisfying when you get on the power down here and then brake, get your car in, looking at the exit, a bit wide. So more time to find, obviously, but that's okay. We're just getting the test done, job done. So nice and smooth. Not the most difficult test. That was a nice, easy one after the challenge of the previous downhill section, and that worked pretty well, pretty satisfying. Now come to head and shoulders the hardest test we've come to so far in any of the tests we've encountered, the Nurburgring. This took me quite a few attempts to get right. I really struggled on this one, and I think there was a part where I was thinking, can I even do this? Is it something I can understand where I'm losing speed? And ultimately, smoothness, slow in, fast out, and it doesn't feel like you're going fast when you are. It's a strange car. A lot of the time I'm not even full throttle. If you watch my throttle input, barely half throttle a lot of the time. So much torque, so much power in this car. Nearly losing it on this section. Managing to keep it together. Went down a gear. You weren't supposed to go down a gear, but I needed to because I'd lost balance, but kept good speed. And then downhill I went down a gear. The car was sliding. I felt more like a passenger when the car was sliding then. I can't say I was in full control of the car, but luckily grip came back to me. And then final corner, I just wanted to get it right. It's a bit wide really, but let's just keep the best speed, keep it smooth, and it's done. Very, very pleased to get that one right. That was a very tricky corner to get right, so section to get right. I was relieved. I actually thought I wasn't going to do that, so I was quite happy just to get it done. So that's it for the International B and International A licenses, and on to the Super license tests, which may or may not come on a separate video. If they do come at the moment, at this stage of recording, I've got gold in 9 of the 10 tests of the Super license. However, I don't know if I am going to be able to complete them all. It depends. I will put some time into that final test. But I hope you've enjoyed all of these so far, and if you've got any questions, do put them in the comments, and as ever, there'll be more from me very soon. Hello viewers, well thanks for watching the video today. Do like and subscribe, it supports what we do. Do become a YouTube member. YouTube Patreon supports all of our content you see on the channel, and of course lots of gaming from retro to modern games. I love it all in terms of racing action. So click on one of the 2 videos just there to find out more.